Hello and welcome as I attempt to explain what was going on in Season 19. Season 19 was defined by the decision to install turntables in the Season 18 election. Turntables was ratified into Blaseball law and thus would affect every game, but it was unclear what this would mean. As play began, turntables activated, turning wins into unwins, or negative wins. The teams who played better were ranking lowest, as each unwin took them further down in the standings. At the Siesta, the boss decided to make her disdain for this clear, cancelling the seasonal readings and insisting that we vote for the only decree available, repeal turntables. The reader hadn't got the memo they were cancelled though, and proceeded to do a reading for every single team, making one player from each of the teams an undertaker, uncertain, or a seeker. They also added a second decree, the underbracket. Despite the boss's repeated reassurance that it was under control and it was being fixed, flooding is still an issue, 7 seasons after it first occurred. Players were being swept elsewhere regularly and staying away for extended periods of time, often returning scattered. This already had 2 knock-on modifications: entangled, which sends back a player's alternate from elsewhere, and undefined, which means players will play 50 to 100% better when scattered. The seasonal reading added uncertain to this. When a player returns from elsewhere, they will be adjusted from anywhere between -15 to +20%. But there were new developments. Seeker was a player who could bring teammates back from elsewhere, and undertaker was a player who would develop the negative of a teammate swept elsewhere. It is still unknown as to where elsewhere is, or if there are long-term effects from being swept there, but with players now equipped to rescue their friends, we may be on our way to a solution. The late Siesta saw renovations revealed, as 16 teams choose to install hoops, meaning when a player scores a home run, the next batter can go for an alley-oop to get an extra run. And the Georges opted to be the first team to install Event Horizon, the black hole version of solar panels. The gift shop also opened, seeing 5 teams gaining replicas, and many teams getting picks from the selection box of Late to the Party, Life of the Party, Fireproof, Ambitious, and Soundproof. Season 19 also brought us a new weather, polarity. Technically 2 weathers. During the game we see it flip between polarity plus and polarity minus, described as numbers go up and numbers go down, respectively. Fairly straightforward, when in polarity plus, runs work how you would expect. Positive integers added to that team's score. Polarity minus, however, turns these to unruns, meaning that every run scored is subtracted from the total. All of this made the postseason an interesting affair. With turntables in effect, the teams qualifying for the postseason are the teams who have played the worst. Yet, we see the Lift and the Lovers beat their wildcard opponents, teams who have played better than them during the season. We then see the Lift, the Flowers, the Garages and the Magic proceed to the league championships, with the Magic sweeping and all the other teams allowing 1 game. The Lift and the Garages become the Wild and Mild champions, both winning 3-2, before the Lift take the championship 3-2, denying the Garages on their 4th attempt at the title. But what happened during the season? Well, we saw Black Hole activate 28 times and Sun 2 32 times. There were 67 parties, but due to turntables not increasing a team's E-density, we only saw 2 consumer attacks. There were 3 reverbs, 5 incinerations, and 5 feedback swaps. Flattery McKinley was shelled, but then freed again, along with 2 other shelled players. And Valentine Games was entered into the vault. Finally, we come to a collection of events that didn't have any bearing, that we know of yet, on the plot, but are just fun. First up, the Sunbeams and the Breath Mints played each other for the first time, meaning that finally, in Season 19, All of the original 20 teams have now played each other. Next, due to polarity weather, we saw our very first negative winning score, when the Shoe Thieves beat the Stakes -1 to -12. Wyatt Mason 10 decided to confuse matters by simultaneously under and overperforming. And with all of their teammates being elsewhere, we saw Kelvin Drumsolo single-handedly take on the Stakes to start, batting whilst also being on bases. This lasted until the bottom of the third inning, when one of their teammates returned from elsewhere. Thank you for joining me for another Blaxplanation. I'll be back with more Blaseball fun and facts soon, but until then, rejoice, play ball.